Hi everyone, this is Dan, and this is Bass Reeves by Allegiance Arts, written by Kevin Grevioux, art by David Williams, lettering by Mr. Comicsgate letterer Eric Weathers, and colors by David Williams or actually colors by Kelsey Shannon. The cover is by David Williams and Kelsey Shannon. And again, Allegiance Arts, run by Mitch Brettweiser. So I kind of already went over what Allegiance Arts was in my first review of Norse Saga, but a quick overview for those of you who didn't watch that video. Allegiance Arts is essentially Mitch Brettweiser's company that is creating comics, and they've got a deal with, I believe, Walmart to have these comics be available for retail purchase at Walmart. I haven't been to a Walmart in a while. I've never seen one with comics, but I'll definitely take a look if I see it. Anyhow, what's interesting is there are three stories. Norse Saga, Bass Reeves, and The Futurist are all historical or historically based sort of stories and dramas. And whereas Norse Saga kind of takes on a fantasy world with Vikings in Canada, Bass Reeves is actually based off of a real person. Very fascinating. I actually read the end right here. Bass Reeves was an actual real person. He was the first black U.S. Marshal, served in Mississippi. Around the turn of the century, I think was like late 1800s, early turn of the century, the 20th century is when he operated. Very, very cool. I kind of like this. So what I will say about Bass Reeves is just right off the bat, the writing is really good. Even though I'm not really a huge fan of these kind of stories, Kevin Grevioux does a fantastic job. This is a great single issue floppy. You will get a pretty good story out of this. The art is interesting. So it's kind of funny in that the last book was Kelsey Shannon's really amazing art, but Blake Northcott's sort of modern writing. And I was kind of like, I liked it, but I was a little mixed about it. This is the opposite. Kevin Grevioux has a more classic writing style, even though, again, he doesn't use a lot of narration boxes, but this is a complete story. You're not, like, fed into, like, oh, get the next issue to see what happens. No, this is, Kevin Grevioux gives you a great introduction and starting story with Bass Reeves and who he is, what his setting is, what his situation is, rising action drama, and driving him into a conclusion of where his character is going to be going on from here on out. And it's great. So start off, you get some crazy action. This marshal gets unfortunately killed, and you get some background with the judge and a pastor telling the lady what happened to the marshal, and the judge basically getting frustrated with this lawlessness in the Indian territories. So this is a period piece. So there are some parts that some people who are more on the sensitive side might find objectionable. I don't mind it so much because I understand that what Kevin Grevioux is going for here is historical accuracy. And I think it's very good. It's very good. There are certain things that obviously are more of a relic of the era of this time, but I appreciate it and I don't find it at all, off-putting. I like it a lot. You get an introduction of Bass Reeves and who he is. We get these criminals that are kind of talking him up like he's some legend. And when they realize he's coming, they don't realize that he's already caught them. And you get the sort of calling card of Bass Reeves. This is Matthew 3:12. Not a religious guy, but I do remember this verse. This is Matthew 3:12. Very interesting. It's a very harsh passage of the Bible. I think this is from John the Baptist telling people, who's going to be saved and who's not, if I remember the verse properly. But anyhow, he's got a great line right here, which is, "Will you be gathered like wheat or burn like chaff?" Right? And you get he's kind of like this good, the bad, the ugly Western kind of badass character. Very cool art here. Really, I love the only recommendation I would say is I like probably more darkness, right? Like, you should give the impression, like, this panel right here is perfect, which is exactly why, by the way, I drew it, because it really, especially with the coloring and the context, it really brings out Bass Reeves and who he is. He is, a lawman and a good man, but he's also a serious person who is not against, intimidation and violence to bring about justice. Very, very interesting, especially for the time. You got to realize that this is the Wild Wild West, so not exactly like due process kind of times, right? So you get here, and you get a really fun scene where Bass Reeves introduces himself to the judge. I'm not going to go through too much of it, but the judge tries to recruit him to be a U.S. Marshal, and Bass has to decline because he has to worry about his family. You get brought into the setting, the situation. The main character, Bass, and his family. He's got a young son. His young son kind of looks up to him and his family. He's got his wife, who's always worried about him. And he goes out to get some supplies with his son, and they see some bandits shooting some lawmen, and the bandits kill some people and run off and escape. And his son kind of has a childish reaction to it, and Bass has to kind of tell him, no, this is wrong. There's more to it than just knowing how to use guns and being good at guns. There is right and wrong in the world and whatnot. And it drives him, logically, it drives him into retaking the offer from the judge to become a U.S. Marshal. And you get a great scene here where he ambushes some guys, and you get sort of the build up. It's a short story, and it moves pretty quick. You get through it real fast, but I will say I appreciate this so much, because this right here does everything you really need to do in a first issue. You introduce the character, you introduce his situation. You bring about a central conflict for which the character is going to grow through, right? In the beginning, Bass Reeves doesn't want to be a marshal. At the end, he decides to be a marshal. Simple as that. It's a closed, shut story. And from here on out, I'm interested and exciting to see what stories Kevin Grevioux is going to write from here on out with this character. Again, even though I'm not really a huge Western fan, or I guess would this be considered a Western or more of a period piece? I guess I'll call it a Western. It's got he's got a cowboy hat and revolvers, but I just want to emphasize how much I appreciate this type of writing in a modern comic book. You just don't get this anymore, where you can get just a good story in one issue. Everybody nowadays tries to milk you for multiple issues, and it's just great. As far as the art by David Williams, it's a very modern type of art. Not a whole lot of detail. There's a lot of just I don't know if it's necessarily light boxing or references that he's using to draw this stuff. But he's not really like a heavy detail guy. He's more of what's the right word? It's kind of stylized. It reminds me of Space Bandits, which I don't mind. I like Space Bandits a lot too. And this definitely feels like an image book in a way. Very good. My only complaint is I think it would be cool to see more usage of the dead space. Again, like a lot of these new books I keep seeing, there's just a lot of dead space. And if the colorist isn't going to add anything or the artist isn't going to use it, then what I would say to Kevin Grevioux is, put more narration in here. It doesn't hurt you at all to do that, since the artist isn't going to use it. If the artist isn't going to use it, then forget it. Add more richness to it. I don't think having more words is necessarily a bad thing, especially if you keep the narration boxes kind of succinct and to the point, right? That's all I really have to say. That some of this is obviously my opinion. I have a preference for the 1980s style of storytelling, and other people may not like it, but I personally feel that's the way American comics should go back to, just because it worked. People bought freaking trunk loads of Uncanny X-Men. We need to get back to that. And I think this book is fantastic, and it's going in the right direction. And I can't wait to see wait to pick up the next one. I think Kevin Grevioux got something pretty great right here. Art by David Williams and Kelsey Shannon's very good too. Anyhow, that's the review. Let's take a look at how I did. Let's see. I really made this big, didn't I? Yeah, I made this really big. Yeah. By the way, this was this was fun to do. After doing after doing a George Perez panel, this is a lot of fun to do. Yeah, lots of ink, so it makes everything very easy when you have a lot of pour everywhere. Yeah, not bad at all. Anyhow, that's it. That's the review. Let me know what you think. If you liked it, please hit the thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications. If you got any comments on Bass Reeves, Allegiance Arts, Kevin Grevioux, David Williams, Kelsey Shannon, or my art piece, leave them down below. And I will see you next time.